Good morning, friends. In this video, I am going to explain how the Indian left and the liberal medias say the Telegraph, the Hindu, the Wire, the NDTV, the Quint, the Scrollin, the Deccan Chronicle. They work and operate within a larger ecosystem of the global left and the global liberal medias, namely BBC, New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, and the Islamic mouthpiece Al Jazeera. This Indian left and the liberal medias, they simply further and advance the agenda of the global left and the global liberal media. Dear friends, I am also going to explore in this video how this unholy love affair between the left liberals and the radical Islamists is growing not only in India but also across the world. They maintain a perfect symbiotic relationship. They support each other from Kashmir to CAA. Dear friends, I believe that today's journalism is nothing but journalism. Nathan Joyner had once claimed that dihydrogen monoxide is a harmful chemical. He gave four reasons for that. Number one, he said dihydrogen monoxide causes severe burn when it is in a gas form. 2. Dihydrogen monoxide kills millions of people worldwide annually. Number 3. It is commonly found in tumor. Number 4. Dihydrogen monoxide causes excessive urination and bloating if it is consumed. 43 out of 50 participants, they all agreed that dihydrogen monoxide must be banned, without realizing that dihydrogen monoxide is nothing but H2O, water. So here it is, how journalism works. You can prove a false claim with the support of a few carefully chosen, selectively taken scientific facts. The information Nathan Joyner presented were factually, scientifically correct. But all he did, he skewed all the information in his favor, omitting the most vital and crucial piece of information. That is water, dihydrogen monoxide. Today's journalists and politicians put into practice this exact journalism. They present before us a couple of scientific facts, or facts which is not easy to challenge or refute, but they carefully chose and present those facts that further their own agenda, carefully omitting and curtailing those facts which doesn't help them. Dear friends, few weeks back, when the Prime Minister of India went to Nimu, a place in Ladakh, he went there to express the solidarity with the soldiers and to boost their morale, who were deployed in such inhospitable terrain in Ladakh fighting such a mighty army of the Chinese. The Prime Minister did exactly what a Prime Minister should do. A head of the nation, he went to the war zone and he talked to the soldiers. That's very normal. But the next day, as usual, as expected, the Telegraph India came with its big font-sized graphic headline out of its obsessive-compulsive hatred. The headline goes, Namos Nimbu. Then there is a picture of a Nimbu, a small lemon. And the next line, it writes, how to squeeze maximum publicity out of a visit, unquote. Dear friends, nothing, according to me, is as depraved, as derogatory, as downgraded, as mean, cheap, base, malicious, venomous, and vicious than reporting a Prime Minister visit to the border in such language and manner. And immediately, all the other left liberals joined the bandwagon. They followed suit. And they started questioning. Number one, why Nimu? Why not to Galwan Valley? Number two, isn't it Nimu far away from Galwan? Number three, they gave us an information that Nimu is a nice tourist spot. So did the Prime Minister go on a vacation? Number four, there was a photograph in which the Prime Minister was seen visiting some of the injured soldiers in an army hospital in Nimu. These left liberal media were quick to point out that why the hospital doesn't have the look and the feel of an hospital. Why it doesn't have the interior of an hospital. Well, the question and the information that they put may sound very logical, very valid, but what they carefully and deliberately tried to hide from all of us is why Nimu was so strategically important for a Prime Minister's visit. They didn't inform you, number one, that Nimu is a CRPF headquarters. Number two, they didn't tell you that in Nimu there's a huge helipad where 4 choppers of any VVIP could land simultaneously. 3, they didn't tell you that Prime Minister was supposed to, was scheduled to visit some of the injured soldiers in the hospital at Nimu. Number 4, they didn't try to explain you that a visit by the Prime Minister to search a border, a forward post like Galwan, might hamper and jeopardize some sensitive military operational movement. They didn't try to explain you all these things. This is called journalism. Now, dear friends, we all know that the growing bonhomie, the insidious nexus, this illicit love affair between this left liberal and the radical Islamist, how they support each other. When few months back, Riyaj Naiku, the terrorist from Hizbul Mujahideen, was gunned down by Indian armed forces, then the war, a professional mourner, started their Rudali. The war wrote about the slain terrorist Riyaj Naiku, quote unquote. A math teacher. That is how it described a terrorist. The Hindu wrote about the same terrorist Riyaj Naiku, quote unquote. A math teacher known for his free tuition to the poor and the neighboring households, unquote. When Burhan Wani was killed, NDTV's Barkhadat wrote about Burhan Wani, quote unquote. A boy of a schoolmaster, a son of a schoolmaster. The Quint wrote about the same Burhan Wani, quote, an youth icon, a cricket lover, and a class topper. The Scrollin described the same Burhan Wani, quote, the legend of Burhan Wani, unquote. Now let us see what the Western media had to say, the Western left and liberal media, the BBC. The BBC described the same Burhan Wani, quote unquote, an activist who was killed by the Indian armed forces because his brother was beaten up by the Indian police. So in a way, by suggestion, the BBC wanted to legitimize and justify terrorism of Burhan Wani. If your brother gets beaten up someday by some polices, then you deserve to become a terrorist and indiscriminately kill the innocent people. The Washington Post describes the same Burhan Wani, quote unquote, an highly educated boy from a higher class family. The same Washington Post describes the Indian army as brutal and coward. That is the language they apply to the Indian army, and that is the language they use for the terrorist. It clearly shows on which side they are on. It clearly shows for whom their heart bleeds, their sympathy goes. There is another article by the New York Times which dedicated an entire heartfelt article to all the slain terrorists in Kashmir. The article headline goes, quote unquote, Kashmir, an inheritance of loss. Oh, how heart-rending, how heart-wrenching, how heart-touchy, right? Now, don't be surprised that the same BBC, a few months back, they deleted the entire Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh from the map of India, in their BBC World Map. The same BBC, after India successfully carried out a Mars mission, before it carried out a Mars mission, it published a caricature in their media where it showed that the Indian scientists from the ISRO, they are carrying some bullock or a cow and knocking the door of the elite space club, pleading for admission and status. Dear friends, racism is in every pore, in every blood, in every cell of this Western left and the liberal medias. And they have the gall and the audacity to tell us that we are racist, we are Hindu nationalist, we are fascist, we are ultra-nationalist. Such is their hypocrisy. After the Balakot, we all know how the BBC, New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian mocked and ridiculed the capacity and the credibility of Indian airstrike. The BBC on 23rd December 2016 ran an article with the headline India's surgical strike. Truth or an illusion, unquote. Writer Ilyas Khan. In the same article, BBC wrote, quote, India claims it airdropped its armed forces on the Pakistani side of Kashmir to destroy the militant camps, which was largely exaggerated, unquote. So, in the same article, BBC emphasized the word India claims, and in the same line, it took the position of a jury by telling that it is largely exaggerated, unquote. In the same article, in the next paragraph, BBC wrote, India is going for election in May this year. So, by suggestion, it connects India's surgical strike with election campaign. Dear friends, Washington Post published an article with the headline, As India drums up, as India beats up its war drum over Pulwama, its illegal occupation of Kashmir is ignored, unquote. So in one sentence, in one breath, Washington Post not only informs its entire global readers that Kashmir is an illegally occupied part of India. It doesn't belong to India. At the same time, it sends moral and intellectual support to all the separatists, to all those bloody jihadists and terrorists who are shedding Indian bloods to snatch our territory and land from our country. It clearly shows which side they are on and whom they will glorify and whom they will criticize. It clearly shows. In another article by the same Washington Post, the writer Musharraf Jayed complimented, I quote, the demonstration of swift retaliation by the Pakistani Air Force, which surprised India and surprised the whole world, unquote. So these medias, Western left and liberal medias, are not actually against war. They are against India winning a war. They are against India. They cannot digest the fact that India can carry out such a audacious strike deep into the enemy territory. If you still have some doubt in your mind, all your doubts is going to will be put to rest. If you still have the doubt about the intention and the agenda of all these left and the liberal medias, it will be put to rest if you just look at the New York Times headline. After India loses the dogfight to Pakistan, question arises its vintage military, unquote. So the New York Times already made Pakistan the winner in the battle. In another article by Washington Post, now the writer is an Indian origin journalist, Suhasini Raj. In her characteristic wafadari to her nation, she wrote, I quote, when the Indian pilot was beaten up by a mob and later served tea, it capped a humiliating episode for India and a surreal week for the pilot, unquote. Dear friends, you all know that afterwards what happened when all this news got published in the world global medias. The Indian left, the Indian opposition from Mamata Banerjee to Sam Pitroda, they all started demanding proof, not only from the government but also from the armed forces and the air forces. And the left medias, they got their bone of contention. After this Bakwas broadcasting network, BBC, published such fake news, this left and liberal medias in India, they got their bone of contention, and with that bone in their mouth, they started their vicious campaign against the armed forces, Indian armed forces. This is how these domestic medias only further and advance the agenda and propaganda of the global left and liberal medias. So the Ware wrote, I quote, Pakistan has demonstrated its credibility. Pakistani Air Force. Pakistani Air Force has demonstrated its credibility. Unquote. To prove its point, the Ware quoted Al Jazeera, the same Al Jazeera which writes, I quote, Muslims in India are punished for asking to be Indians. Unquote. The print media wrote, I quote, forget Balakot, never mind Balakot. Indian Air Force is worse off than the Pakistani Air Force. Unquote. The Telegraph wrote, quote, after strike thrust made, time to choose carefully. Two versions. One is Indian version, the other is Pakistani version. So the Telegraph uses the metaphor thirst, like bloodthirst. So when our Indian blood spills on the border, it is legitimate. But if we take action in self-defense, then it becomes bloodthirst. This is all the hypocrisy all about. If they spill our blood, the bloody terrorists and the Pakistani goons, then this same media will question us that it is our intelligence failure. Then if we threaten to take action, then the same media will tell that we are drumming up war hysteria. And if we take real action, then they will ask us proof. Nothing to say.